Hello, everyone. Today, I have an incredible story to share with you. This isn't just a story for your listening practice. It's a lesson in determination, resilience, and the power of never giving up. No matter where you are in life, this story will inspire you to push forward, work hard, and believe in yourself. We all have dreams. Some of us want to start a business, become successful, or improve our lives. But the truth is, success is never free. It requires effort, patience, and the courage to take risks. Many people give up before they even start because they think the journey is too difficult. But what if I told you that every challenge is an opportunity to grow? That's exactly what today's story will show you. The story is called Nothing is Free, and it follows a young man with a big dream but no resources. He faces obstacles, failures, and tough decisions, but instead of giving up, he keeps going. He proves that success is not about where you start, but how hard you are willing to work. So, sit back, listen carefully, and let this story remind you that no matter how tough life gets, your dreams are worth the effort. Are you ready? Let's begin. Liam is a 20-year-old with big dreams. Ever since he was a child, he imagined owning a successful restaurant where people from all over would come to enjoy his food. He wanted to create something special, something that would change his life and the lives of those around him. But dreams alone weren't enough. He had no idea how to turn them into reality. Liam's family struggled financially. His father, Mark, worked long hours as a mechanic, fixing cars to keep food on the table. His mother, Claire, cleaned houses, doing whatever she could to help support the family. Despite their hard work, money was always tight. Some days, they barely had enough to get by. Liam also had a younger sister, Sophie, who was just 10 years old. She looked up to him like a hero, always believing he would do something great. But deep down, Liam felt lost. He wanted to give his family a better life, but he didn't know where to start. Without money, experience, or a clear plan, his dream felt impossible. Still, he refused to give up. He knew there had to be a way, but what was it? He sat outside his small house every night, staring at the stars, asking himself the same question. How do I start when I have nothing? Little did he know the answer would come soon, an opportunity that would change his life forever. Liam sat outside his small house deep in thought. The weight of his family's struggles pressed on him, but so did his dreams. He wanted to build something for himself, for his family, for his future. But no matter how much he thought about it, one question remained. How do I start when I have nothing? One evening, as he sat in silence, his father, Mark, joined him. Seeing the frustration on Liam's face, he placed a hand on his son's shoulder and said, "Liam, dreams are not free. If you want something, you have to fight for it. You don't need money to start. You need determination. Look around. Use what you have." Liam took his father's words to heart. The next morning, he walked through his town, observing everything carefully. He saw children playing in the streets, shopkeepers arranging their products, and neighbors chatting outside their homes. Then, he noticed something interesting: people carrying bags of bread from a bakery far away. His town didn't have a bakery, but people loved fresh bread. Every day they had to travel a long distance just to buy it. That was it, the perfect opportunity. If he could bring fresh bread to his town, he could solve a problem and make money at the same time. But there was one big issue. He had no money to buy bread in bulk. Liam thought hard about what to do. He decided to take a risk. Instead of waiting for the perfect situation, he would create his own chance. He remembered hearing about a grumpy old man named Mr. Anderson who owned a well-known bakery in the next town. Mr. Anderson didn't trust people easily, but Liam had no choice. He had to convince him. The next morning, Liam woke up early and set out on the long walk to Mr. Anderson's bakery. By the time he arrived, his legs were sore, but he took a deep breath and stepped inside. The smell of fresh bread filled the air. Behind the counter stood Mr. Anderson, a stern-looking man with sharp eyes. Liam approached him with confidence and said, "Mr. Anderson, I want to sell your bread in my town. People there love fresh bread, but they have to travel too far to get it." Mr. Anderson raised an eyebrow. "And why should I care?" he asked. Liam took a deep breath and explained, "If you let me sell your bread, you'll have more customers. But I have one problem. I don't have money to buy the bread up front. Can you trust me for 1 week? I'll sell the bread, return your money, and keep a small profit." The bakery owner frowned. "Why should I trust you? What if you take the bread and never come back?" Liam stood firm. "Because I'm determined. I won't let you down. Give me a chance, and I'll prove myself." Mr. Anderson stared at him for a long moment, then finally sighed. "Fine. 1 week. If you don't pay me back, don't bother coming here again." Liam felt a surge of excitement. He had taken the first step. Now it was time to prove himself. Liam woke up at the crack of dawn every day, long before the sun began to rise. He knew that to succeed, he had to put in the work. The first few days after he struck the deal with Mr. Anderson were filled with excitement and nervousness. He had taken the first step, but now the real challenge began. He had to sell the bread, and not just sell it. He had to sell it in a way that would make people want to return. He set up his small stand every morning, carefully arranging the bread, making sure each loaf was perfectly placed. He greeted every person who walked by with a big smile and boundless energy. "Fresh bread, warm and delicious," he would call out, hoping to catch their attention. At first, most people walked by, not interested in stopping. Some even gave him skeptical looks, unsure whether the bread was any good. But Liam wasn't discouraged. He remembered his father's words. Dreams are not free. Start with what you have. What he had was energy, determination, and the willingness to keep trying. So instead of just sitting back and hoping for customers to come, Liam took a different approach. One day, he decided to offer free samples of the bread. As people walked by, he'd hand them a slice and invite them to try it. "You won't regret it," he would say, hoping to make a lasting impression. Slowly but surely, the word began to spread. More and more people stopped by to try the bread, and many ended up buying it. By the end of the day, he had sold out every loaf. Liam's excitement grew as he returned to Mr. Anderson's bakery to pay him back for the bread he had sold. The old man raised his eyebrows when Liam handed him the money. "I didn't expect you to come back so soon," Mr. Anderson said. Liam smiled, feeling a rush of pride. "I told you I would," Liam replied. Over the next few weeks, Liam continued to sell bread every morning. His business grew steadily, with more customers coming to his stand each day. He worked tirelessly, always arriving early to set up and staying until the last loaf was sold. With every passing day, his confidence grew. He was proving to himself and to others that he could succeed. As the weeks turned into months, Liam's earnings began to accumulate. He was able to save a portion of his profits and eventually bought a small cart to make transporting the bread easier. It was a simple wooden cart, but it made a huge difference in his efficiency. Now, instead of walking back and forth carrying the bread by hand, he could fill the cart with more loaves and sell to more people. His small stand turned into a mobile bakery of sorts, and customers could now find him all over town. One afternoon, while Liam was setting up his cart, a customer approached him. She was an older woman who had bought bread from him several times. "You know, Liam," she said, eyeing the bread with appreciation, "you're really good at selling this bread. But have you ever thought about baking it yourself?" Liam paused, the thought lingering in his mind. "Bake my own bread?" he repeated. It was an interesting idea. For a moment, he imagined the possibilities. If he could bake the bread himself, he wouldn't have to rely on Mr. Anderson anymore. He could make more profit by cutting out the middleman, and maybe even create his own recipes. The idea felt both exciting and terrifying at the same time. But there was one big problem. Liam didn't know how to bake. He had never baked anything in his life. He didn't know the first thing about mixing ingredients, kneading dough, or baking bread in the oven. The thought of failing at something so crucial was daunting. He hesitated for a moment, but the customer was still smiling at him, waiting for him to respond. "I've seen you work so hard, Liam," she said. "You've got the passion and the drive. If you learned how to bake your own bread, I bet you'd be able to take this business even further." Liam looked at her for a moment, considering the idea. Could he really do it? Could he learn to bake? He was already working hard, but baking was an entirely different skill set. Still, the idea intrigued him. If he could master the art of baking, he wouldn't just be selling bread. He could create his own signature product, build his own brand, and possibly even open a small bakery. The thought was thrilling, but it also felt like a big leap. "Thank you," Liam said, smiling. "I'll think about it." That night, as Liam lay in bed, he couldn't shake the thought of baking his own bread. The idea started to grow in his mind, becoming more and more exciting. He had come this far by working hard and taking risks. Why not take another risk and learn something new? But the fear of failure was strong. What if he wasn't good at it? What if the bread didn't taste good, or worse, what if he failed altogether? Liam tossed and turned in bed, but eventually he made up his mind. "Nothing is free," he whispered to himself. "If I want to succeed, I have to take risks and learn. I can't let fear hold me back." The next day, he made up his mind. He was going to learn how to bake. It wouldn't be easy, but if he wanted to take his business to the next level, it was a risk worth taking. He just had to figure out how to get started. As Liam set out on this new journey, he realized that this was just another step in the path toward success. Another chance to grow, to push beyond his limits, and to prove that with enough hard work and determination, anything was possible. The idea of baking his own bread excited Liam, but it also filled him with a sense of uncertainty. He had no experience with baking, no understanding of how dough should feel, or how to perfect the baking time. But deep down, he knew that this was the next step if he wanted to take his business to the next level. The next morning, after delivering the bread to Mr. Anderson and paying for his weekly supply, Liam stood in front of the bakery, feeling a mixture of excitement and nervousness. He took a deep breath and walked inside. The old man was there, arranging loaves of bread on the shelves. "Mr. Anderson," Liam began, his voice steady but filled with anticipation. "I've been thinking. I want to learn how to bake the bread myself. Can you teach me?" Mr. Anderson glanced up from his work, his expression unreadable. He wiped his hands on his apron and set down the loaf of bread he was holding. For a long moment he didn't say anything. The silence in the bakery was heavy, and Liam started to feel a little uneasy. He knew it was a big ask. The old man had been kind enough to trust him with the bread in the first place, but teaching him how to bake was another thing entirely. "Why would I teach you?" Mr. Anderson asked, his voice gruff. "If you learn how to bake, you won't need to buy my bread anymore. You'll be competition, and I'm not sure I want to help you take away my business." Liam felt his heart sink. The last thing he wanted was to make an enemy of the man who had given him a chance. But he quickly gathered his thoughts and replied, "I understand, Mr. Anderson, but I promise you this. I won't forget the man who helped me get started. If I succeed, I will make sure to remember you. You'll always have my respect." Mr. Anderson seemed to consider this for a moment, his eyes narrowing as he studied Liam. He was quiet for what felt like an eternity. Finally, he sighed. "Fine, I'll teach you. But I'm warning you, it won't be easy. Baking is more than just following a recipe. It takes time, patience, and a lot of practice." Liam felt a rush of gratitude. "I'm ready," he said, determination in his voice. "I'll do whatever it takes." The lessons began the next morning at 3 a.m., long before the sun rose. Liam was tired, but his excitement kept him going. Mr. Anderson showed him the basics: how to measure the ingredients, how to mix the dough, and how to knead it properly. At first, everything felt foreign to Liam. The dough was sticky, the flour would spill everywhere, and no matter how hard he tried, the loaves never turned out right. They were either too hard, too soft, or burnt on the edges. Every time he made a mistake, he felt a wave of frustration. It wasn't like selling bread. This was something completely new, and he felt like a failure. One morning, after ruining yet another batch of bread, Liam sat down on a stool in the bakery, feeling defeated. His hands were sore from all the kneading, and the sight of another failed loaf made him want to give up. "Maybe I'm not cut out for this," he muttered to himself. "Maybe I should just stick to selling and leave the baking to people like Mr. Anderson." But then he remembered his father's words. "Dreams are not free. If you want something, you have to fight for it." Liam stood up, wiping the flour off his hands. He couldn't give up now, not when he had come so far. The next day he returned to the bakery, more determined than ever. This time, he paid extra attention to the steps Mr. Anderson showed him. He focused on the feel of the dough, the exact timing for when to take the bread out of the oven, and the way it smelled as it baked. Slowly, over time, the bread began to improve. It wasn't perfect yet, but it was getting closer. Weeks went by, and every day Liam returned to the bakery before dawn. Sometimes he'd make mistakes, and sometimes the bread would be a little off, but he never gave up. Slowly, he became more skilled, and each loaf was a little better than the last. It wasn't long before Liam felt more confident in his baking. He started experimenting with different recipes, adding his own twists to the bread. Finally, one morning, after hours of work, Mr. Anderson looked at the loaf Liam had just pulled from the oven. He held it in his hands, inspecting it carefully. The crust was golden brown, The bread was soft inside, and the smell was incredible. "This," Mr. Anderson said, his voice softer than usual, "is perfect." Liam's heart soared with pride. He had done it. After weeks of hard work and struggle, he had finally baked perfect bread. The effort, the early mornings, the mistakes, all of it had been worth it. Liam could hardly believe it. He was ready. "Thank you, Mr. Anderson," Liam said, his voice full of gratitude. "I couldn't have done it without you." Mr. Anderson gave a small nod. "You earned it, Liam. Keep working hard and you'll go far." Liam smiled, knowing that this was just the beginning of his journey. He wasn't just selling bread anymore. He was making it from scratch, and he was ready to build his future. Just as Liam began to feel like his business was growing and everything was falling into place, a new challenge emerged. One morning, while setting up his bread stand, Liam noticed a large banner being hung in the town square. It was brightly colored and said, "Fresh bread and pastries, now open." Liam paused for a moment, a feeling of unease creeping over him. The new bakery was run by a young man named Eric. He had a modern shop with vibrant signs, sleek displays, and the kind of professional look that Liam had only dreamed of. Eric's bakery was a sharp contrast to Liam's small stand, and it drew a crowd quickly. People were curious, and they flocked to Eric's shop, attracted by the novelty and the fancy setup. Before long, Liam started to notice a decline in his own sales. Where he used to have a steady stream of customers, now only a few would stop by. His loyal customers, the ones who had supported him through the early days, seemed to be drifting toward the new bakery. At first, Liam couldn't understand what was happening. He had been working tirelessly, baking fresh bread every day, but now it seemed like the town had found a new favorite. Liam's confidence was shaken. He thought about what his father had told him. Dreams are not free. It felt like everything he had worked for was slipping away. Maybe this is the end, he thought, feeling defeated. Maybe I can't compete with someone who has the resources and the fancy shop. But Liam wasn't the type to give up easily. He knew he couldn't let this setback stop him from pursuing his dream. After all, every challenge was an opportunity to grow. Instead of sulking, Liam decided to take action. He needed to observe the competition and figure out how to improve his business. That evening, after the bakery closed for the day, Liam walked by Eric's shop, carefully watching how things were done. He noticed how the modern bakery had clean, eye-catching packaging, and the customers seemed to appreciate the neat presentation. People weren't just buying bread, they were buying an experience. The atmosphere was inviting, and the shop offered a variety of fresh pastries, cakes, and even drinks. The whole setup felt polished and professional. Liam realized that there were a few things he could learn from Eric's business, but he wasn't going to copy him. He didn't have the resources to open a big bakery or invest in expensive signage, but he could make small improvements. It was time to innovate and stand out in his own way. The next day, Liam decided to experiment with new flavors. He had always made the classic breads, white and whole wheat, but now he began adding varieties like sourdough, cinnamon raisin, and multigrain. He knew that people loved variety, and offering something different would keep them coming back for more. At the same time, he worked on improving his packaging. He didn't have a fancy bakery with printed bags, but he could still use simple, eco-friendly paper bags that looked neat and professional. He added small stickers with his logo and the words "Baked with Love" to each package. It wasn't much, but it was a step toward creating a brand people could recognize and trust. But Liam didn't stop there. He realized that keeping his loyal customers was just as important as attracting new ones. That's when he had an idea for a loyalty program. Buy 5 loaves, get 1 free. He knew it was a simple idea, but it would make customers feel appreciated and encourage them to come back regularly. With the new flavors, improved packaging, and the loyalty program in place, Liam felt a renewed sense of purpose. He wasn't going to compete with Eric on the same terms. He would carve out his own space. The next day, he set up his stand with a bright, welcoming sign that read, "Fresh bread, new flavors, and special deals." It didn't take long for customers to start noticing the changes. The new flavors piqued their interest, and the packaging gave Liam's bread a professional look. Word spread quickly about the loyalty program, and soon his regulars were back, eager to earn their free loaf. People who had gone to Eric's bakery started coming by too, curious about the new options. Liam also started offering samples to passers-by, hoping to win them over with the taste of his freshly baked bread. As the days went by, his sales began to rise again. The competition with Eric was still there, but Liam was no longer intimidated. Instead of looking at Eric's success as a threat, he saw it as motivation to push his own business further. Though he didn't have the same resources as Eric, Liam learned that with hard work, creativity, and a willingness to adapt, he could overcome any obstacle. He had transformed his business in a way that was true to who he was, focused on quality, personal service, and a genuine love for baking. As the weeks passed, Liam's bakery continued to grow. He wasn't just selling bread anymore. He was building relationships with his customers, making them feel like part of the journey. And that, he realized, was what would set him apart in the long run. The challenge from Eric had forced him to innovate, and now his business was stronger than ever. Liam smiled as he looked at the growing line of customers waiting for their bread. Nothing is free, he thought, but with hard work, I can make it all worth it. As months passed, Liam's business flourished. His bakery, once just a small stand with a few loaves of bread, had now grown into a thriving local chain. The customers who had once hesitated to buy his bread now lined up every morning, eager to get a taste of his fresh products. His business was no longer just about selling bread. It had become a staple in the community. People trusted him, not only for the quality of his bread, but for the personal touch he added to everything he did. Liam's decision to diversify his offerings with new flavors, along with his focus on customer service, had paid off. But it wasn't just the variety of bread that kept his customers coming back. It was the way he made them feel. He remembered their names, their preferences, and always made them feel welcome. Every loaf he sold carried with it the promise of quality and care. Eventually, Liam expanded his operations. He opened several more bakeries in nearby towns, each one reflecting the same values: hard work, attention to detail, and a commitment to excellence. His success wasn't built on fancy shops or extravagant marketing. It was built on his genuine love for baking, his willingness to learn, and his determination to succeed. But despite his success, Liam never forgot where he came from. He made sure to stay humble and grounded. As his bakery chain grew, he started mentoring young entrepreneurs who were just starting out, just like he had been when he first began selling bread. He shared his story, telling them about the struggles he faced and the lessons he had learned. Liam wanted to help them understand that success doesn't come easy, that it takes time, persistence, and a willingness to keep going even when the road gets tough. Liam never missed an opportunity to give back. Whenever a young entrepreneur would come to him for advice, he would remember how Mr. Anderson had helped him, even when he was just a young, struggling baker with no money or experience. He took the time to teach others the same way Mr. Anderson had taught him, showing them that dreams are built on hard work, not shortcuts. Through it all, Liam kept the same principles that had guided him from the start. Dreams are not free, he would tell them. Success isn't free either. It takes hard work, learning, and persistence. And above all, it takes patience. Don't rush the process. Trust the journey. Liam knew that the road to success wasn't easy, but it was worth every moment of effort. His story was proof of that. And as he stood in his bakery, watching his employees prepare fresh bread, he couldn't help but smile. His dreams had come true, but it hadn't been because of luck or shortcuts. It had been because he had put in the work. Every early morning, every mistake, every piece of advice from Mr. Anderson had led him to this point. Liam looked out the window of his bakery and saw a group of young people walking by, eyes bright with curiosity. Just like me, he thought. They have dreams too. He walked over to them, greeting them with a smile, ready to share his story and offer any advice they might need. It was time to pass the torch, just like Mr. Anderson had done for him. Liam's journey wasn't just about creating a successful bakery chain. It was about understanding that success is built on hard work, and that it's a never-ending process of learning and growing. Every challenge along the way had been an opportunity to improve, and now he could look back and see that all his struggles had been worth it. As he handed a loaf of fresh bread to a customer, Liam said to himself, "Nothing is free, but if you work for it, if you learn from your mistakes and never give up, success will come." And with that, he knew his journey had just begun. There would always be new challenges, new opportunities to learn, and new ways to grow. But with the lessons he had learned, and the people who had supported him along the way, Liam was ready for whatever came next. As Liam's story unfolds, it teaches us so much about perseverance, growth, and the value of hard work. His journey wasn't easy. He faced challenges, setbacks, and moments where giving up seemed like the easier option. But instead of turning away from his dreams, he chose to keep moving forward. He took small steps, learned from his mistakes, and never stopped believing that his hard work would pay off. So, what do you think of Liam's story? Would you have made the same choices he did? Would you have had the courage to face the obstacles that came your way? Or would you have given up when things got tough? Maybe you've faced some of the same challenges in your own life. Or maybe you're in a similar situation right now, wondering if it's all worth it. I want to hear from you. Comment below and share your thoughts. Do you believe that hard work is the key to success, just like Liam did? Or do you think there are other factors involved in achieving your dreams? I'd love to know what you think, and let's have a conversation about what makes the difference between success and failure. Liam's story isn't just about baking bread. It's about what happens when you're determined to follow your passion, work hard, and learn from every experience along the way. It's about choosing to keep going, even when the road is tough and success feels far out of reach. And that's the message I want you to take with you today. Don't give up. No matter what dreams you have, whether they're big or small, whether you're just starting out or you've been working on them for years, don't give up. Keep going, keep learning, and keep pushing forward. You might face obstacles and setbacks along the way, but remember, every challenge is just an opportunity to grow stronger and smarter. You can do it, just like Liam did. So, here's my challenge to you. What is one step you can take today to move closer to your dreams? It doesn't have to be a big leap, just a small action toward your goal. Whether it's learning something new, taking a risk, or even just believing in yourself a little more, every small step matters. And before you know it, those small steps will lead to big changes. Remember, success isn't free. It takes hard work, learning, and persistence. So, keep working hard, stay focused, and never give up on your dreams. You have everything it takes to make them come true. Thank you for joining me today and hearing Liam's story. I hope it inspired you to keep going, no matter where you are in your journey. Don't forget to comment below, share your thoughts, and stay motivated. We're all in this together, so let's keep pushing toward success, one step at a time.